Welcome to Men-Tal-k 2. And today we have a special guest in studio today. I met this gentleman in 2004 while I was at the University of the West Indies, and he was one of the lecturers, and you wonder why you had to take this course, Caribbean Civilization. And he would not have known me then, but years later, about 2004, 2010, 20, about 6 or 10 years later, we met each other under different circumstances. And from since then, we have been in communication back and forth. I reached out to him for advice on certain things, and he was there, always willing to lend a hand. He's an educator, he's a historian, and he would have a lot to share with you today on his trials and tribulations and things that he would have done to make and create the best version of himself. So today, our guest is none other than Dr. Lovell Francis. Good day, Dr. Francis, and thank you
Hey,
for
how you
joining
doing?
us.
My pleasure. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm good.
I,
So,
I appreciate your introduction, but you left out one part. Mischief maker, not just academic, but mischief, world-class mischief maker. You leave
world
out that
class
part.
Mr. Baker. Okay.
Yeah. How are you keeping?
I'm good. By the grace of God, I'm still alive because I see that every day persons are not waking up, persons are being put down. So
Yeah.
I'm thankful for being alive today.
Yeah.
So
Life is life. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
since you started off as mischief maker, say I forget that. So tell us about yourself. Tell the audience who is Dr. Lovell Francis.
All right. Well, good evening to everybody who is tuned in. I am a humble country boy from a place called Moruga, which you tongue people call down in the bush, but I call home. I was born in Port of Spain, and then 3 months later, my mother decided to relocate the entire family back to our home village, which is Bastia in Moruga. And literally since then, I have been here, except for the few years I spent on the African continent um, on national duty. I have lived in Moruga all of my life. Um, my first job, and I would suggest maybe the most important job I've ever had, was a primary school teacher. So at the time you met me at the university, I was a lecturer, quote unquote, but I was really still a primary school teacher. I taught primary school in Muruga for 17 years. And I will tell people they were the best 17 years of my life. And then one day I woke up and I was at the university and I was lecturing. And if you ask me how that happened, I really can't tell you. I literally slipped and fell. And one day I was a teacher, next day I was a lecturer, and it was crazy like that. And then I spent a few years at the university lecturing, which I enjoyed it, particularly that course you referred to, Caribbean Civ, and which is
Trying
where,
for
of course,
yourself. Where
yeah,
the classes were 300 plus students. That's
yeah,
trying.
400 people, and listen, I had a ball. I think, well, you were there, so you know I had a ball. I had a ball. I really enjoyed those lectures, those interactions with the students, and then I was moved to the history department, and that really wasn't for me. I liked those large classes. I liked Caribbean Civ. I liked dealing with all the students from different backgrounds because students who do Caribbean Civ are not history students. They're students from all different backgrounds, and it's right meant to give them a sense of the region's history and its present.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed history, but I think around 2014, 2015, I was getting a itch to try something different. And then, of course, you'd have known that I entered the political field. I was a member of parliament, a minister for 5 years. And after that, I was sent on national duty in South Africa, where I was an ambassador and high commissioner to 11 different African countries, but based primarily in South Africa. But
Okay.
hopscotching from South Africa to Zimbabwe to Malawi to Mauritius to Namibia, Zambia, Botswana, all of those Southern African countries I was responsible for. So I spent the last 4 years on the continent, well, 3 years and 7 months on the continent, and I only came back home as of a few months ago last year. So that in a nutshell is my journey from being born in Port of Spain, as they say behind the bridge. I was actually born in Laventer,
Uh-huh.
a
That I
place,
didn't know.
a place, yeah, a place called Maplan.
I know where my plant is. I wasn't too far, Snake
Maplan,
Valley.
Maplan. Yep, my mother had a house in Maplan. So I was actually born in Hospital Port of Spain, and I spent the first 3 months of my life living in Laventille in Maplan. And then my mother decided to go back to her home, ancestral home in Moruga. And as a 3 month baby, I was taken with her, and I have been in Moruga basically ever since. But I was actually born in Laventille. So I was born in Laventille and a product of Moruga. And
Nice.
it's difficult to find two further points geographically in Trinidad.
Yeah.
Yeah, from this part of the city to the southern, literally southern coast.
Yes.
When people tell me I live Caracas, I had to say, it's closer than you think, you know? Yeah, yeah. So that's me in a nutshell. A
So,
study in contrast, but an interesting life, nonetheless.
yeah, because many persons within Trinidad and Tobago has not even visited Moruga or
Yeah,
started because they may just reach St. Mary's and not
yeah,
come all the way down to the police station
yeah.
and go all the way to the road till the road end. I took that
Well,
journey already.
well, that's very good to hear from a northern person that you've actually taken that journey. But my family has a very unusual history. For the last 3 generations, that story I told has been a traditional thing. So my mother and her siblings, they were born in Port of Spain. They grew up in Moruga. They relocated to Port of Spain as adults.
Uh-huh.
So in a way, my brothers and I have broken our family tradition in that we actually stayed in Moruga. So if we'd followed the pattern for the last 2 generations that came before us, I should be living in Port of Spain.
Yes.
So it would have been you're born in Port of Spain, grew up in Moruga, and then you go back to Port of Spain. So we've sort of ended that pattern. But all of my other cousins on my mother's side of the family, they live in Port of Spain. So we are the only ones, we are sort of anomalies because we actually stayed in Moruga, whereas the others returned to Port of Spain to live as adults. So we really are Tong family.
Song, but you
Yeah,
decide,
Tong
you and your brother
family.
decide to go
Not
back
any
home to
so-called.
your roots, to the
Yeah,
roots of your family, back to the roots.
yeah, yeah.
So what made you? You said you were a teacher, and then from teacher jump into lecturing, lecturer at the university, and then
Yeah.
into politics. But what? Because you said you taught primary school for 17 years. Which primary school you said it
Yeah.
was? In
Holy Trinity
Moruga?
Anglican School. Holy Trinity Anglican School in Moruga. You mentioned coming down to the police station. So you know that you've actually seen that school. It is the
Yeah,
school that is before the police
before the
station.
police station. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you know there are two in Ganchima. There's one before and
yeah,
one after. So
yeah.
that school
One after is
before
when you make
the
the swing and go down in the road.
yeah.
Laloon.
So
Yeah.
that school, there's actually one closer to the beach in Ganchima as well. Literally,
Okay.
it is now almost on the beach, given the coastal erosion that is happening on the southern coast. It is now
Okay.
almost on the beach. But that school that you would see maybe 100 or 200 meters before the police station, I taught there 17 years. I mean, and let me tell you, I have I have enjoyed every job I've ever had, but I credit teaching for shaping me in a way that no other job has because I started young. I started at 18. So I started literally out of school. I find myself teaching primary school. You're teaching primary school children who are, let's say, 10. And to them, you are sir, but you're only 8 years older than them because they might be. So, but they
Yeah.
don't care. You have to be sir, and you have to be the person who's going to help shape their lives. And if you know the history of our country, the history says that people who live on the southern coast and on the extremities, the far northeast, the far southwest, tend to not achieve as much academically historically. So, as a student who became a teacher almost overnight, understanding that, I saw it as a chance to help shape the lives of young people in my home community. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? Who wouldn't want to do something to fundamentally improve the lives of the young people on your block? in your own village or in the village next door. And I fell in love with a job that I didn't know I would be good at. And before you knew it, 17 years had gone by and I was there. Yeah, I mean, teaching is not a job where you could get wealthy overnight or any night, but I was satisfied and I have lived to see the children I have taught, the vast majority of them doing very well in life.
This is 17 years, so that is, you could see that is,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what classes did you just taught all standards when you were in primary school?
I taught standard one, that was my first class. I taught standard three, and I taught standard four. I never taught standard five because the belief was I was very good at preparing students.
I'm not going to say
Um,
you taught the preparation classes because
yeah, I
after
am
you
very
leave
good at.
first year,
Yeah, if you put me to teach standard five, where it's just a rush to this exam, you're sort of wasting my ability. I am good at shaping people and preparing them. So I was happy to. And then people don't understand that the most important class in primary school is really standard one,
yes, it is.
because
Yes, it
standard
is.
one is that transition from infants to middle school. And I mean, you could suspect it, but I had the raw information in front of me when I was at the ministry, where most of the students that go off the rails in standard one have difficulty recovering at any point in their educational life. So I spent the first few years of my career teaching standard one and getting children to move from that infant stage to that middle school stage, which is more important than we understand. So I am good at preparing. I was good at preparing and shaping students. And then one of my colleagues would do the standard five thing, and I was happy with that. Never in
And
standard two, because standard, if you know that, it's a dirty secret. If you teach standard two, it really means the principal doesn't think you're all that as a teacher. Never taught standard two. Never taught standard two.
I, you see, and that's so true in terms of the shaping of the minds. Standard
Yeah,
one, because you bridge the gap from being a little baby
yeah,
to a child.
yeah.
Standard three is the other bridge in between because standard three, you're preparing to go and do exams, standard four, standard
Really,
five.
yeah. That's where it
Right? So
starts.
what so if you miss whatever missing standard one and two could fix in standard three.
Has to
And
fix
then
the standard
standard
two.
four, all you had to do is prepare and make sure everything is there to prepare
Yeah,
the mind mentally for that.
yeah,
And I could still teachers are so amazing people, and most don't understand this. Teachers leave a lasting impression on their students. Is it either negative or positive? Because I can
yeah,
remember all my teachers to date from primary school to secondary school, the ones, and that's why you see so many schools now having alumni associations, not just for that they went that school, but the impact that the teachers had. And
yeah,
now that how things are going, they want to give the past students, the students there, sorry, the opportunity to feel what they felt,
yeah.
to start to love the school. And if the school not getting funding enough, they do fundraisers to try to enhance the school so the individuals who are now present could experience that.
I'm a I'm a big believer in the idea, the concept, and the word legacy.
Mhm.
That's a significant thing for me. Now, and I have more than one legacies that I saw it as my duty to carry on. I went to school in Muruga. I went to school in my village. I am from a village called Bastia. I went to, the proper name is St. Augustine RC, but nobody calls it that. We call it Bastia
That's
RC.
yeah, see.
And I went to school in the good old bad days where you walk to school, you walk home for lunch, you walk back
And you walk
after
back to
lunch,
school.
and then you walk back in the evening. So you're educating and you're exercising on the same time, same day. And I will tell you that I went to school in a rural community in Trinidad, and I would compare the education I got favorably with what was achieved, what would have been received anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago. I had excellent teachers in primary school, and I could call the name.
Again,
Excellent, excellent teachers.
they left that impression on you.
I get
Remember
my
them?
tail, I got my tail cut because I was, I said it again, said it before, a mischief
Troublemaker.
maker.
Mischief maker,
But
sorry.
but excellent schooling. So I leave primary school at age 11. 7 years later, I am a primary school teacher. You know, you get the punishment you deserve in life.
Yeah. So you get the
I was
mischief
a
makers to
teacher.
give the grandmaster mischief maker in
Yeah,
his class.
you become a primary school teacher. And now them children feel they can run scam on you, not knowing I know all these scam because I pulled them before you. But I understood even at 18, and part of this is good teaching, part of it is proper parenting, that I had inherited a legacy from the teachers who taught me. How could I, as a product of rural education that was a quote unquote success, end up in the classroom in my community and do less?
Correct.
I couldn't do less. You can't do less. You can't do less when you understand that the children that you will be teaching don't have the advantages of other children in more urban settings. So the people who taught me prepared me well for secondary schooling and for life. I couldn't do less as a primary school teacher. And more than that, I am a big believer in sport and physical activity as a developmental trope. So not only was I teaching, I was the football coach, the athletics coach, the cricket coach, and we had a small school with 100. When I got to that school, there were 160 something students. My school, we produced national champions athletics. We're talking about 80 boys and 80 girls in our little country school. And we're
Hmm.
producing national champions javelin, discus, long jump, running. Our football team reaching the national finals. Our cricket team reaching divisional finals from a little school with 80 boys and 80
And
girls.
80 girls.
But at the time I taught, there was a whole confluence of positive things happening. We had a community that was very invested in the school. We had parents who were grown people, parents were big people, who were serious about their children's education. And then we had children who were teachable, who were willing. They might not have been the most talented people, might not have been the best athletes, been the best students, but you're trying to teach them something they're willing to learn. And we had a staff of 7 teachers. That school was so small, we had only one of each class. But we had a unity of purpose and a unity of direction. And that little school, I tell you, that 17 years I spent there, we won from the year I arrived, we won our zonal games, that's the Muruga games, 17 years in a row. From the day I arrived to the day I left, we won athletics every year. When I went back at MP and as an MP and saw that school with the children, because we were ready for sports day, and I saw children in red coming second, coming third, coming last, I was having a cognitive dissonance. Like, this doesn't make sense to me.
You're ready to go back in the school and
I
improve
tell
it.
you, culture of winning. I
Hmm.
wanted the children to have, children need to experience success in life at the youngest age possible. And I wanted them to experience success in life very early. So you are 6 years old and you're in the stadium winning a medal. That is the kind of thing that can mark you positively for life. And even if you reach in the stadium and you don't win a medal, the experience of going there and participating and being part of that could fundamentally impact on you for life.
Correct.
So we had a whole generation of children down here in the bush who are unfazed by anything because we tried our best to provide them experiences. And it wasn't me alone. I was the coach, but nothing is ever accomplished by one person. There's
Nope.
always a team. There's always someone who raises funds. There's always someone who helps you to train. There's always someone who cooking the food. There's always someone who bringing the water. There's always a team effort. Doesn't matter if one person might be integral to the thing. There's no success is ever really a singular achievement. So we had parents, we had staff, we had a community behind us, and for 17 years in that school, we did literally amazing things until it was time for me to go on to something else. But those children are all over the country doing all sorts of different things, and we still have a relationship to this day. They still call me sir, which I do not appreciate because some of them taller than me and bigger than me. But I
But yes, sir.
appreciate the
You
respect and the
always, sir.
meaning.
You are always, sir.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
Because to my teachers, they are always sir and Mr. Me. I can't call them by the first
Yes.
name.
No.
I my brain can't work like that.
Correct.
Yeah, so I
Yes. But
mean,
what we heard from you here is that you have what this podcast and the only idea was for behind it is to making men the best version of themselves, helping
yeah,
men become the best version of them. And from the things that you said, from since you entered, and this just primary school alone,
yeah.
you helped not only men, but the young people, men and women, and even the teachers in the school to become the best versions of themselves
But that's
from
your job.
small.
That is your job. Teaching is a job that you can interpret, just like lecturing, just like MP, just like minister, just like ambassador. It's a job you can interpret in many different ways. I have always preferred to have a broader view of things rather than a narrow view. A narrow view of teaching says that my job is to come and teach mathematics, grammar, science, social studies, to teach you between 8:30 and 3:30, and to prepare you for an
Oh.
exam and get you on. That's a narrow view of teaching. I always had a broader view of teaching. My job was to shape you for life.
And that's why they say teachers
So
are born and not made. Eh? They
to
are,
shape you for
they
life.
remember the argument that teachers are born and
Yeah.
not made. So
Well,
you will get different ideologies on both, right?
yeah, but
So
part of your ideology is it has to do with who influenced you. And one of the most important things in life is to understand where you are and what you're supposed to be doing in it. One of the problems that we have as human beings and as men, women too, but as men, we men, so we're talking about men,
yeah,
is
go on, sir.
understanding where you are and what you're supposed to be doing. And you would be amazed, Aki, to understand that plenty big people who have difficulties figuring that out or understanding how to follow through with that. I was at a time in my community where the best options available were planting what we call sensimania, marijuana, weed, or fishing. There's nothing wrong with being a fisherman. There's nothing wrong with being a farmer, planting food crops, which is legal. But I wanted the students I taught to understand that there's a bigger world out there with more opportunities. If they chose to buy a fishing boat and fish, I have no problem with that. But children can't be limited by what they see. I wanted them to see more than what was in front of their eyes. And I understood that as my function. And then to shape them into citizens who would contribute something to the community and the country. And I saw that from the very beginning. And then it was reinforced by the people I worked with that this is what teaching meant to me. It didn't mean reaching at 8:30. It didn't mean leaving at 3:30. It meant entrenching myself in a community where I was from and being I don't want to say a force for good, but being a personage that would influence betterment for those who are around, particularly the children who were my responsibility.
what
Doesn't
you
mean
said
doesn't
there,
mean you don't make mistakes. Doesn't mean it doesn't end up being a work in progress.
correct.
Because in those 17 years, I would have thought that I was the greatest teacher from day one, but reality would have said differently. I remember the hardest thing to teach as a primary school teacher is division. It's the hardest thing. In maths, division. And if you get division wrong, there are a whole set of concepts the children will have problems with: fractions, ratios, decimals. All them things going to be problems because they don't understand division. And you're trying to teach this long division, and the ministry have its way, and the children have their way. They learn, they see what their mother and father doing, and every year you teach division, somebody trying to get it. And every year you teach it, Akil, you try to do better. And if it take you a week, it take you a month, it take
You
you
have to do it
2 months, you had to do it. But you learn from the mistakes you made, and the next time you do it, you try to do it better.
better.
And that is a metaphor for life. That notion of becoming the ideal man or the best version of yourself. is a journey. It might be a journey with no finish line. And I can tell you real experiences. Regardless of whatever I thought about myself or I think about myself as a person, I will tell you this. I didn't choose to be sent to Africa as a diplomat
You know,
in 2021. I would have chosen to stay in Trinidad and contributed as a member of parliament or an MP. Again, or a minister again. I was sent to Africa. Wasn't my choice. It was the duties I was given. I am a servant of the nation. I have been serving Trinidad and Tobago since I was 18 years old. You tell me this is what it is, I'll go in. I will tell you, I came back from Africa a much more evolved person than when I went. And I would have gone to Africa in my 40s as a big man, thinking, all right, well, I have been a teacher, I've been a lecturer, I've been a member of parliament, I've been a minister. Most of these jobs are things that few people get to do. And I am a well organized, well structured product. And I go to Africa and I spend a lot of time amongst African diplomats who are at another level of sophistication. And just being around them and seeing how they operate and seeing how they handle things had a fundamental impact on me. About 2 years ago, I went to a conference in Zambia, place called Kitwe in the Copper Belt. So it's hundreds of miles away from the capital. You gotta go there by plane and then this long land journey to get to the city in the middle of this huge mining area. Very nice looking city. Went to a conference on African development, so African economic development. And there's one thing that we don't understand in the Caribbean is that the Africa that we see in the Western media is a fabrication. Africa is not what you see, which is children with fly on their mouth. I don't know where them just find these people. I spent 4 years in Africa and I ain't seen nowhere looking like them places. Africa is not what they present. So at this conference, and they're talking about African development, the way the economy is shaping together, the way the economies are linking and resources from here are coming here, and the whole diagnosis of Africa's economy is that it is poised for a huge economic leap. In the middle of that, this guy from the European Union stands up and he says, well, all this talk is nice, but Africa should not really focus on competing or becoming a competitor against Europe or China. You should focus on what you are good at historically, which is providing raw materials. Now, I am from Trinidad. And the first thing that came to my mind, Akil, was to tell him how his mother made him in very short words. These Africans do like that man and say nothing. They ignore him. They ignored him entirely and they just continued with their dialogue. That and their calmness and their decorum and their way of treating with things, even with things that they didn't like. Whereas I might fly off the handle and tell you something that I really want to tell you. Just their sophistication in dealing with negative situations had an impact on me. So that process of becoming the best you is a journey, and it might never end, but it is always something worth working towards.
it's
None
about
of us,
evolution.
it's about evolution. Sometimes it's about revolution.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's about incremental change. Sometimes it's about getting focus. Sometimes it is about many things at the same time. But it is a journey, and sometimes it could be unpleasant because I like to be the chinny to tell you how your mother make you. But sometimes knowing place and time and understanding what you're there to do and what you're supposed to be doing will trump that. And that's what you had to be. It's a journey,
yes, it is.
but one well worth taking.
And it's a journey based on things you said prior. It's a
Mhm.
journey that some persons need guidance with.
Yeah, you do.
There are
But listen,
many, if you ask a young person what
mm,
they want, a child in school, secondary school, what they want to be when they grow up, many of them cannot answer you to this day.
yeah,
I know what I wanted to be at 15 years old. I sat my parents down. I said, hey, I want to do X, Y, Z. Let me fail on my own. This is the
mm,
path I know I have to take to reach it. So if I fail, don't pressure me too much with studies. I was bright already. They left me alone because one thing, I like home, I like school. Instead of going to school, come home, do my homework, no questions asked. On Friday, when everybody wants to go and play, I do all my homework on Friday afternoon, Friday evening. So Saturday morning, I could get up and watch cartoon on the TV and go pan and do all those things. So Friday, my homework is finished. Even to this day, once the work week is finished on a Friday, by Saturday morning early, all my clothes finished washed for the week. So I wash all my work clothes, everything. So that is instilled in me from since
yeah,
I see time. Another thing that we could do to make ourselves better men is respect time. And if we
yeah,
say,
yeah,
because we have this thing about Trini time, 7 o'clock is 8 or 9 o'clock. No, 7 o'clock is 7 o'clock. But the real thing is to be on time is to be late. Being 10 to 15 minutes early is the correct thing to do.
yeah.
Right? So,
I consider chronic lateness a character flaw.
yeah, but that is
And
what we have
also,
in this country.
it says to me that you don't respect other
The
people
other
and
person.
their time.
Correct. I
Yeah,
tell people that over and over and they watch me funny. But if we agree on something and a simple thing, you're running late, we have cell phones now. Cell phones has created the biggest untruth, the biggest liars today is what the cell phone did because every time you call somebody, they almost reach. Simple thing, I'm running late. I might be there about half an hour. That means you could adjust to what you are doing. Because if I tell you I'm meeting you for 7 o'clock, most times by 6 I'm driving now, so by 6:15, 6:30 the latest, based on where I'm going, I've already left. So if you know you're running late, let me know early so I wouldn't waste time on the way so I could be doing something else in the interim.
yeah. Well, one of the perks about living in Muruga on that issue of time, which others might see as insignificant, but is a fundamental question in our society. Yeah? It is. That
Mhm.
issue of how we regard time, how we treat with time, is a fundamental issue. And our attitude to it affects our productivity, production, or the lack thereof. And I mean, myriad other areas. One of the perks about living in the bush, because of the lack of economic activity in Moruga and many rural communities, we always early in it.
Yeah, because I had to
Because to
leave.
get to work, to get anywhere, to get anything done, you had to go somewhere.
Yep.
So we are early risers and early movers. So I have never had a fundamental problem with lateness for myself. Everything I do, I had to be early. I come in from far. To get anywhere, I had to move early. I had to be there early. When you leave early, if I had to come to Tonga Kiel, I can't leave Muruga 7 o'clock.
No, 4 o'clock,
If I
half
am,
past four.
I have to leave at a wee hour and I will get to Tongue
Mm-hmm.
early and probably take a nap before the thing starts. But better I be there on the spot than you be waiting for me to come to a meeting. I consider lateness a character flaw.
And I agree with you. I have this problem with time, and people always asking me, but we in Trinidad, Trinity. No.
No,
And that is one thing that helps men become the best version of themselves. One of the most important things is respecting time. And when
yeah,
you respect time, you respect others.
because
You,
it points to your ability to organize yourself. And
yes.
an effective man must be organized.
And it points to
Life,
your ability also that
yeah,
how you see the person, how you see
yeah,
what you schedule to go and do. Because we may be early. Sometimes people reaching late for work all the time still, and that's their job. So if you could do that, what you reaching early for? The sense of timing and the sense of respect is off.
yeah. I think I understood very early in life that the nature of life is to have randomness and chaos. If you yourself are disorganized as well, if the world is chaotic and you are chaotic, what are you going to accomplish? What are you really doing?
Nothing,
You ain't
nothing. You're
doing
just
nothing.
being in chaos. spinning top in
It
mud,
is
as we say.
impossible. It is impossible for you to control all of the things that affect you. But the one thing over which you have some control is yourself and your ability to organize yourself and to be organized.
Right.
And if you want to be a man who accomplishes anything worth accomplishing, there must be a sense of self-control and a sense of order. However you view order, order with yourself and for yourself.
The question I want to ask now: how was it for you to transition from primary school teacher to lecturer? But before we even go there,
Mhm.
you have a doctorate, right? Is it
Yeah,
a PhD or is it a medical doctor? For those who don't know, and what is
PhD,
it in?
PhD.
And what is it in?
It is actually in history.
In history.
Now, yeah, and that's an interesting story because I, by all intents and purposes, should be a medical doctor. But I had an issue in secondary school. The way my brain works. Now, I keep telling people I had a problem with maths in secondary school. Now, it isn't that I don't understand maths. I don't understand maths the way it is taught in Trinidad. There was a thing I used to do in secondary school and even at teachers' college when I went there. If you hand me a CXC paper, Akil, I could just look at the questions and tell you the answers automatically.
What they want to see working.
Yeah, they want to see working.
They want to
But
see
I
working.
can't explain to you in the way you understand how I solved it. I remember I did an exam in teachers' college. Teachers' college there's a maths exam. It is above CXC maths but below advanced maths. And I'm doing this exam, and my partners want to go online, and this is sometime 11 o'clock in the day, and I have this exam to do, and them going to Lime, and I'm like, I ain't not missing this line. So I walk in the room, they hand me a paper, and I write down all the answers, and I walk out. One bacchanal in the place. Who want to pass me, who want to fail me? But it pointed to a larger issue I had. I understood maths. Maths to me is like music. When it makes sense,
It
it's
makes
like
sense.
music. It makes
Hmm.
sense. When it doesn't make sense, and the way it was taught to me in school didn't conform with the way I understood maths in my mind. So in my mind, I had an issue with maths. But if I went in another jurisdiction where maths was done differently, I might go in them guys writing long equations on the wall, you know, because that's how I see mathematics. I was really a science and maths person, but I didn't want to do chemistry, physics, biology, and add maths, which is the pathway to
Equivalent
being a
stuff.
medical doctor. I
Yeah.
wanted to do physics, chemistry, literature, and something else because I
And
like to
no
do
math.
different things. And they were like, "You got to be crazy. You want to put curry in the kalaloo?" So they're like, "Here, what? They will put me into what they call modern studies, which is geography, history, and literature. None of which I wanted to do beyond the literature. And I end up going from being a science student to being a
Yeah.
modern studies student. And then I was like, I am inquisitive about everything. I am curious about everything. What gives me an avenue to open every door? History.
History.
I could do a history of physics. I could do a history of maths. I could do a history of science. I could do a history of archaeology. So history became my doorway to being that I'm interested in anything. So even though I had no real interest in history as a secondary school student, it becomes the avenue for me satisfying the demands of my mind. And that's how I end up with a PhD in history as opposed to being a medical doctor, which is what logic says I should be.
And that what you said there. I remember you coming to lecture to us without a book in your hand.
Yeah,
No book, no
no,
anything. And sometimes you'll write on the board, but we can't see the whiteboard from where we were. But
yeah. So
you would rattle off quotes. You would rattle off saying you would tell us
uh,
who said it, and
it's a
without a
big head, I
book.
feel. My mother,
With
my mother told me very early in life. She said your head is very big. You might as well be bright, or you're straining your neck for no good reason. And I took that advice seriously. No, but all of us have talents.
yes, we do.
All of us have talents. Some of us, because of the environment or circumstances we find ourselves in are not allowed to have that talent actualized. I have a talent for mathematics that might be ridiculous, but because I was never led down a path to make use of it, it never reached where it probably could reach. But I took that talent for making sense of things and I made it into a narrative talent. So you were going to ask me how I moved from teaching primary school
To
to
university
lecturing.
lecturing,
Yeah,
yes,
it's,
correct.
it's the same thing. I realized years ago I could teach you 2 plus 2 equals 4. And you might remember the formula, or you might remember 2 plus 2 equals 4. But if I tell you a story where 2 plus 2 equals 4, better again, a ridiculous story, I get you to laugh. You will never forget 2 plus 2 equals 4.
Equals 4.
So I taught primary school by stories and humor. I got those children to laugh. And I will meet them today, 20 something years later, and they can remember the stories I told them because I tied the concept that I was trying to teach them to a vehicle that would carry it, which was a ridiculous story or a joke. And when I got to university, I was like, I can't do this sitting with these big people. They come and tell you, such a long, boring thing to have you sleeping. People don't think history boring already.
Yeah.
I don't want to fall into the allegation. I must break the allegation. I come in and tell you a stupid story. But behind that stupid story is a fundamental concept. And before you realize what I'm doing, I have already gotten into your head with nonsense. But at the tail of the nonsense is a fundamental concept I want you to understand. And it worked. It worked. Yeah, people believe that education is this rigid, overly structured, very sterile, very boring thing. I have always thought that education is as interesting as the educator. And I could make anything interesting with enough work, effort, and imagination. So the same methodology I used to teach those children, I transformed into something that worked with adults. And I went to the parliament after and did the same thing. I'm going to tell you a narrative. I'm going to tell you a story. Human beings are tellers of stories, and we listen to stories. If I go to sit down and explain something economic to you, I'm not coming to tell you the raw data. You go in and blink, 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 and fall asleep. I'm going to tell you a story in context that is interesting, and I'm going to convey the same information to you. And it works. It just requires more effort, more imagination, sometimes more
Okay.
planning, more reading, more research, more preparation. But the more experiential we make education, the more providing an experience, even in a classroom context, you can provide an experience. The better it redounds to the children, the students, the children, the students, the pupils, whoever you're teaching, the better it is for them. So and then I'm a trained teacher. When you're a primary school teacher, back in the day, you went to 2 years of teaching college,
Children college.
either at Current or Valsine. Before that, Morsica. And in them 2 years, they shaped you basically into a world-class teacher. So I have a teaching diploma as a primary school teacher where I know the psychology and the skills and the methodologies of teaching. When you put me in a university classroom, I am well equipped to bring anything to anybody because I
You've
am
trained for that long time.
trained to manage a classroom, trained to manage students, trained to manage expectations, yeah.
So, with all that stories that you would have told and what you would have passed through, could you name at least one of the most difficult times you had and how you overcame it?
I mean, with me, that's very simple. If you understand politics, and I know you understand politics because
Yeah.
I mean, we know each other before, but that's how we really know each
Yes.
other. And so if you in that realm, you know what certain things mean. if you are a member of parliament and a minister, and your next appointment is to be an ambassador overseas, that is not a present, you know. Unless you're the retirement age where they bring you something to retire with grace. What is really being done to you is you're being sent into exile. So in 2021, essentially, I was sent into exile out of the country. I I actually I've been all over the world in my life. I've been all over the world doing lectures, doing research, for seminars. When you're an academic, that's the life you live.
Yeah.
But I had never spent more than 2 months out of Trinidad. So I was in South Africa for the first time in my life, away from my village, away from my family, away from my home, away from my country for an extended period. And this gets very personal for me. My mother died in 2012. And literally, the last thing she said to me before she died was make sure and take care of your father. While I'm in South Africa, my father is diagnosed with cancer.
Whew. Oh,
While I'm in South Africa on national duty. And I am the eldest of three boys. And in my family, we all serve or have our roles and our purposes, but I am the problem solver. I am the one who there's a problem, I fix it, I deal with it. So I am the one who would have been there in some ways providing primary care, but also making sure that everything is right with him. I am on national duty and I can't run away from the post to come and babysit my father. I can't. I am serving in a significant capacity for my country. And in that case, the responsibility to the state kind of trumps responsibility at the personal level. So I could facilitate his care, but I am not there to do it. He dies 2 years into my tour out there.
so sorry to
And
hear that.
all I can remember is my mother saying to me, take care of
Take
your
care
father.
of your father.
I couldn't do it. And you know, us old school people, taking care of your parents is one of the fundamental responsibilities that we know we have. I am firmly of the view that one of the easiest ways to have a very difficult life is to have your parents suffering and you could do something about it. I
Mm.
have never seen that end well. So my father is here literally dying of cancer and I am overseas and I could do things from far, but I'm not there to provide the kind of care I wanted to give. And that was very, very difficult for me. It still is difficult. There's some in some ways it is still a question mark in my head as to what I could have done differently, what I could have done better. But one of the benefits I had is that I was raised by parents who ensured that I understood my purpose wherever I was and whatever I was doing. And my father was of the type that, you know, most school parents, them sick, but they worry more about you than themselves.
Yeah. Making sure you're
But
good.
yeah, they more concerned with you being good than with. So I would call my father every week, more than once, but every Sunday morning I would call him. And from the time he realized I good, he caught up the phone, he watching a Western, you know, he ain't studying. I trying to find out how he feeling. He ain't care about that, you know. He's studying once I good, he good.
Good.
But it was probably the most difficult thing I have faced in my recent life. And whereas I've gotten past it, I've gotten over it to some extent, it is still a sore spot for me. You have a weakness and you can still feel the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still there. I'm not lying to you, it's still there. For
It
me,
has
that
been.
responsibility to parents is a big deal.
Okay. How what helped you with it though?
I have two brothers who I could count on. And even though they have their own lives and their own responsibilities, they were here. So they were like my conduits for dealing with whatever. And I think also to some extent, I was prepared by my parents for these kind of difficulties.
Okay.
When we were young, for example, my mother is the perfect example. From the time I was 6 years old, she would tell me what to do when she died, which is a weird conversation to have with a child. If you think about it, but in its own way, it makes sense. So
I,
literally
I,
on the day
what she did there,
on the day she died,
I like that.
I had a template
For
for
what?
knowing exactly what to do. I had no questions. The woman was simple. You find my ID card, you go on to the funeral home, you organize the death certificate, you make sure in 3 days I in the ground. I was hearing that since I was 6 years old. When my mother died in 2012, what do you think happened?
3 days in the ground. You
Everybody
did
else
everything
balling.
she.
I looking for the ID card to go and get the death certificate, to go to the funeral home. She was in the ground in 3 days. She died on a Sunday or Wednesday. She was buried.
So she prepared you. And
Preparation. She prepared
one of
me.
the things is people don't like to we don't like to talk about that. But one thing we are sure about, we are going to die at some point in time.
Look at that.
Right? And
And
talking about
and
that, at my time as an insurance agent,
yeah,
people I noticed that people fear speaking about that. But once you're prepared for it, it's a little ease to have the conversation because you put things in place. If
yeah.
you talk about that, because when you think about it, you would think about who you're leaving behind, what you're leaving them behind in, and then how you're leaving them behind after that.
And and in a very fundamental way, somebody has to know what to do.
Yeah.
Everybody going to be born in it.
And
Somebody has to know what to do.
then they will go and dig up to find your stuff and things like that. So with all these things that going, she prepared you
Yeah.
that hey, I could go at any time we're getting older, but anything could happen. ID card important. Carry it. So that's one of the first things you have in your head. Mommy died, get my ID card, get my death certificate, go by the funeral home. 3 days
Yeah.
time I want to be in the ground.
Yeah. I knew what to do. I can mourn. I can mourn at the end of it. I can mourn throughout it, but I wasn't left without information as to how to function.
She guided you along the way.
Yeah. So, and part of parenting, whether we like it or not, is having difficult conversations with children. Just like to some extent, part of teaching is having difficult conversations with children to prepare them. I remember teaching a primary school class, um, standard three, and something we do in social studies. And one day I was just moved and I walked into the classroom and I asked all the girls to stand up. And I said, if I asked you all to go to the washroom and look at yourself in the mirror and punch yourself in the face, would you do it? And they started to laugh. All of them laugh. Until they realized I was not joking. I said, because listen, if you don't take your education seriously, you are putting yourself in a situation where you can end up a lifelong victim of abuse. Whereas if you learn something here, you get to be the author of your own future, where nobody could punch you in your face. If you don't want to do that, you might as well start practicing to take a cuff from now. I was telling this to 9 and 10-year-old girls. You know what happened? 10, 15 years later, who are teaching, who in university, who is lawyer, who running bar, who running parlor, wherever it is. Everybody doing their own thing as women standing on their own feet, which was the point.
You are the author of your own future.
You could paddle your own canoe yourself. You had to be dependent on nobody.
So you were primary school teacher,
Yeah.
university lecturer, member of parliament, minister, ambassador. What's next
Well,
for Dr. Francis?
when I figure that out, I will let you know. 'Cause I'll tell you a rude secret. I'll tell you a rude secret, but it's something I have understood about myself for a long time. I am very happy to hear that at 15, you had an idea of what you wanted to do in life. My first desire as a boy was to be a soldier until I realized that when you shoot people, there's actually dead. And I was like, okay, maybe not, maybe not, maybe not. I have never really had a plan as to what I wanted to do career wise. I can't tell you I want to be a teacher. When I finished school, that was the opportunity I had, and I took it and I made the best of it. I definitely never wanted to be a lecturer. I ended up there.
You
I
made
can't
the
tell you
best of it.
I wanted to be a politician. When I entered politics, people don't know how green I was. I didn't know a thing. I literally walked in off the street into screening, they choose me. 3 months later, as a minister, MP, me ain't know nothing, me ain't know nobody. I was an OGT minister, doing everything on the fly. I can't tell you I want to be an ambassador. I ended up
Doing
there.
it.
I have always been the type, wherever you put me, I will find purpose. I will find a way to do it in my own way, and I will try to be the best at it that I could possibly be, and then in my mind, be the best to the point where I change the landscape or I change the conception of the thing. I really can't tell you what comes next. I don't know. But wherever it is, there'll be some attributes. There'll be a purpose beyond myself and my pocket. It will be down to the benefit of people beyond myself, hopefully the country, and it will give me the satisfaction of having a purpose and making my society better. Because that is what fundamentally drives me. I am the kind of person you could give $1 million to do a job and I'll be satisfied with the pay. That doesn't work for me. Unless I believe I'm serving a greater purpose, and that might sound naive, but that's how I function. I am driven by purpose. I'm not driven by wealth. I'm not driven by money. I'm not driven by name or fame. None of those things matter to me. They're like water on a duck's back. To me, the greatest achievement has always been being me. So no title or no tag or no name or degree makes me feel any different. What makes me feel important is, or not important, but that I'm doing something significant, is that I serve a purpose beyond myself. And if you look at the jobs I've done, there's a
Purpose
straight line
driven.
to them, purpose driven, not money driven, not status driven, not wealth driven, none of that. None of that matters to me. I don't care. I care about serving a purpose beyond myself and trying to make the place a little better. And I don't care how naive that sounds, who don't like it, they could go and kick rocks with their soft sneakers. That is who I am. And
So
that's the person I want to be. I've chosen to be, and I'm happy being.
you said, and I would like to end it here. But before that, you said purpose driven and finding purpose. Miles Monroe said a man needs to find his purpose.
Yeah,
And once he finds his purpose, he'll never work a day in his life because what he's doing is beyond himself.
yeah,
Right? And just remember that while you said a purpose driven life. And you also said wherever you are put, you find you do it to the best of your ability, beyond your ability, you find purpose in it and you make it your own.
yeah,
Right? And it's the same thing with purpose. Once you find your purpose in life, you are able to carve a way that nobody else may have seen. And you are
yeah,
just like you were speaking about the maths, the mathematics in school. You were seeing it, but others were not seeing it the way you were seeing it. So you bench that, basically, right? Or they bench you
yeah,
based on how you were doing. So you were cut down from before, but you didn't let that stop you. You
yeah.
use what the hand that was dealt to you to increase the value that you can bring to other
Somewhere
people.
else, somewhere else. Yeah, yeah.
So, so Dr. Francis, I'd just like to thank you for joining us on the program. And we have to finish this conversation at some other time because you have a lot of knowledge, a lot of story. Because everything I asked, and this is what you said, how you educated through stories, and you did the
Yeah,
same thing here. So you walked me through the mischief, how you end up being mischief. Then you were king mischief, end up in the class, and you have mischief makers under you. So, and then you evolved, and you evolve, and you keep on evolving, and that's an amazing thing to know, and to for you to see for yourself, and for men on the whole to understand that life is not stagnant. We need to evolve, revolve, revolt, different
yeah,
things inside ourselves first before we could go out there to become anything else. We
yeah.
need to do it inside ourselves first. So I just want to thank you for sharing that with us. And we look forward to having discussion with you later on at any time that you may see fit to come and share with us again and share the knowledge that you have to help men become the best versions of themselves.
My
So
pleasure, my brother. You know, I'm a
thank
WhatsApp
you.
away.
Yes. So thank
I'll
you
text
very
you that
much.
message and I will be there.
Yes, and I thank you for that. And for all who are listening, this has been Men Talk 2 with me, your host, Aki Lordin, and the guest today was Dr. Lovell Francis. See you again next week. Take care.